Welcome to Rawsome Parents, the podcast where parenting gets real, raw, and awesome. Parenting is messy, magical, and transformational. So whether you're navigating new parenthood, single parenting, co-parenting, or rediscovering yourself after the kids have moved out, you are not alone. Here we share raw truths, heartfelt stories, and playful conversations with parents and experts, because suffering is optional, and together we can lead with love, heal what holds us back, and create lives full of fun and integrity for ourselves and our kids. So grab a coffee, hit subscribe, and join us on this wild ride. Let's get raw and awesome. Hello and welcome back to the Rawsome Parents podcast with me, Shaun Tucker, and I'm here with Aleyx Ward today. Aleyx, if you don't know Aleyx, she is a mother of two. She's also a brand storyteller and keynote speaker with a mission to inspire businesses, leaders, and individuals to form deeper connections through story. With her background in strategic marketing roles across the UK and Australia, she's helped shape narratives that resonate and inspire. So everyone has a story to tell. What's yours? Aleyx, welcome to the show.
Hi, Shaun. Thanks for that. Thanks for the introduction.
It's such a wonderful thing to have you here. I mean, we've tried a few times and for whatever reason, the internet hasn't allowed us to do this. So I'm really grateful that we're spending the next 30 minutes together. Yeah. And if I can, I'd love to just ask an open-ended question. So what's a parenting rule you once swore by that you've since abandoned, and why?
I've got loads. I was actually talking to someone about this not so long ago. You know, all the things that you say you're not going to do as a parent when you become a parent, and that swiftly changes.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a big one for us would be the no watching the phones.
Yeah,
So
interesting.
before we had kids, we were like, oh, we're not going to let our kids watch like iPads, phones, or anything. But then when you try and go out to dinner with two toddlers, the phone swiftly comes out. It does for us anyway. As soon as, our daughter's acting up and we're trying to, the dinner's arrived, if you just behave, you can have the phone. So I think that would be a big one that we've gone back on, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I'll actually wonder what parents used to do before mobile phones. Do you have any idea? I mean, I can't remember what we had as kids, but we didn't go out all that often. So
yeah, it's same. We didn't go out. Going out for dinner was like a very rare treat. I think probably colouring in pens and paper. That's great when some restaurants have it. They don't all have it. Perhaps we need to have a little go bag with a few activities packed. But usually if we go out for dinner, it's spur of the moment and we don't have anything. So
yeah, interesting. I mean, I do see it now a lot. A lot of parents do kind of just whip out their phones, but it's not, from what it sounds like, you're doing it consciously, right? You kind of know, you see the impacts of it, because that's the pre-framing that you've had, that you didn't want to bring it before you were parents. And then, when you've got toddlers and you're at a restaurant and it's getting chaotic, it becomes quite easy to bring it out. But I think a lot of parents out there don't really know or understand the implications, I suppose, of these devices, and they just let their kids run free. The slightest little tantrum or the slightest little discomfort, or even if they just ask the parents, can I watch your phone? What kind of implications do you think that brings?
Well, I think I've seen it firsthand with our daughter, because there was a period where we probably gave, I say we, me, I'm the soft one, we gave her it probably more than we should have. And it did become an expectation, was when my son was born, and it was just, anything to kind of keep her happy, keep her relaxed. And then it became an expectation. So every time she'd get in the pram, she'd be like, phone, please. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, this isn't good. So now, we've completely stripped back on that. And it was hard to implement at first because she'd become accustomed to it. But once we started saying, no, you only get it, at certain times, it's a treat, she stopped asking for it as much because she knew that the answer was most likely going to be no. So I've seen both sides of it, and I'd
Yeah.
also add to it before I had kids. I thought I'm never going to give it to them.
Yeah.
Being a parent and seeing, experiencing how difficult it can be at times, I always just say to people, just do what works for you. If you need a rest and it helps you, do that. Don't be so hard on yourself, because I do see the other side where parents are so strict, but then it to the detriment of themselves as well. So I think find your balance, whatever that is, because it's different for every family.
Yeah. And we're kind of basing our own parenting on how we were parented as well, weren't we? Or aren't we? And sometimes, I mean, for good or bad, what do you think are some of the significant ways that your childhood and the way your parents parented you could be influencing your way of parenting?
I think in a positive way, because if I look at my childhood, I wasn't parented probably the best way. I didn't have the best upbringing. It wasn't to say that it was all bad, but through going through that, I've know the things that I don't want to do, and I work really hard at, for example, understanding feelings. I really struggled in adulthood to understand my own feelings because I hadn't learned how to do that growing up. So
Mm,
I now do that with my daughter. Anytime she's upset or emotional, I get her to sit down, like, okay, what's going on? What are we feeling? And I also do that too with myself at the same time. So yeah, that's a big one. So I think from my
yeah.
childhood, it's seeing, okay, what was missing in my childhood and what do I want to make sure that I bring into my kids' childhood.
Do you think, going back to a little bit of how your parents parented you, do you think they had time to even comprehend what was happening? Or do you think it was more survival that they were kind of, do you think they knew what they were doing and how they were parenting, or they were just doing it?
So I grew up with a single mother. So I did see my dad. He lived in England, so I saw him twice a year. Um, if I look at my dad's side, my dad was a bachelor. He lived with his best friend, and he was really laid back. I'd say maybe at times too laid back.
Mm.
I loved it as a kid going there because it was like the ultimate freedom. Like we could just do what we wanted, run riot. It was great. But I think that has consequences. And I think my dad did that because he didn't see me that much. So when he did see me, he wanted to just give me whatever I wanted. But then when he got together with my stepmom, she was like, oh, she needs some rules because there was no boundaries there. Which, kids do need boundaries. And I think from my mom's perspective, she was a single mom with two kids, and
Mm.
she was, trying her best with what she had. Was she aware of it? Probably not. My mom's an alcoholic, so that comes with all other issues. So I think, she had many other problems that she was dealing with, and probably the bringing up children was secondary.
Yeah, understand. And I found on my own journey of becoming a parent and becoming a father and a dad is it's almost like it's reenacting a lot of those unmet needs when you were a kid. I don't know
Mm,
if you've experienced the same, but it's almost like you're parenting yourself as you're parenting this child.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
if there have been voids or unmet needs in your childhood, they become very, very apparent very quickly.
Mm, mm. But I
And
think, oh,
yeah, go
sorry.
ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, I think to that though, it can be seen as a positive because I believe that from my own experience, you're even more conscious of what you don't want to do and what you want to give your kids because you haven't had it. And I believe you're making a bit more of a considerate and conscious effort, which I think, if you can see the positives in it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think in that it's about facing what it is that you didn't have, right? And I see it so many times. If you experienced some form of abuse or trauma, it's like trying to protect your kid from all of this. without dealing with it yourself, which
Mm.
actually means that the kid probably then has all of your anxiety and all of this fear-based thinking when it comes to these things. So you're right, it's using it as a tool for growth for that person or that self, that parent, because that's the only way you can really liberate the kid and stop the cycle from going on.
Yeah, exactly. Completely.
Because like one of my good friends, when he first had his kid, he was not having a good time.
Mm.
He was suffering from depression before he had kids, but that depression literally came to the surface within the first couple of months because the kid could not settle. He could not settle the kid. And it
Mm.
was just a vicious cycle of cortisol and adrenaline just ramping each other up to the point where he literally was yelling and shouting at the kid like, shut up, right?
Mm.
Horrible thing to watch and to witness. And I didn't witness it firsthand, but the people around him at that time have to support him in such a way that he can deal with it,
Mm.
because that kid's going to have it left unresolved for later on if he doesn't.
Yes.
And that's kind of both the empowering side of being a parent, but also the potential negative side if you're not ready to face what it is that you didn't have when you were a kid.
I believe your kids are here. They're all here to teach us something, and often teach us stuff about ourselves. And I really relate to that story you just shared of your friend, because when my daughter was born, I hadn't done the work. I hadn't really, gone to therapy or anything like that. So I experienced a lot of lows as well when she was born, because my whole life had changed, and I had this feeling that I had to get everything right. And I didn't know why that was, but then once I went into therapy and sought help, it was because I'd been missing it in my childhood. So I had this like great anxiety that I need to get this right. It's got to be perfect. And of course, anyone that is a parent knows there's no right way. You can't get it perfect. But in my head, that's what I thought I had to do. And
Yeah.
it wasn't until much later after, my second kid this year, I went to therapy and did a lot of coaching and worked on myself. And through doing that, I could be a better parent. So yeah, all these things come to the surface, and I think our kids really push us in the right direction and get us to work on things that we might not have done otherwise.
Yeah. I've noticed something when I look at my 10-month-old daughter. I look at her in the eyes and all I see is the reflection of what I'm putting out. But it's just so much more innocent. There's no layers of who she thinks she has to be, because she's not there yet, right?
Yeah.
She's just really raw, very vulnerable, and really innocent. And that just like warms my heart so much, and it keeps my heart open. But I could see how so many people would find that very intimidating,
Yeah.
because they're just not ready to process or to even look back, especially if they didn't have, the best childhood. And sometimes it's not even conscious, right? They might not realize that it wasn't as great as what they thought it was, because we tend to either see the negative or see something that wasn't quite reality,
Yes.
So I'd love to ask a question. This is more around how it's sort of shaped your definition of success. But has your definition of success changed since becoming a parent?
Yes, I would say it has, in that it's really hard, isn't it, to define success, but success to me is really just feeling happy and content and safe, and knowing that, I have built this family that all love each other and support each other, and know that no matter what happens, we've got each other. And to other people, that might sound basic, but to me, growing up, I didn't always have that. So when I look at the life that I've got now, I don't look at all the things I haven't yet achieved. I look at, well, look at what I've got already. And I'm so grateful for that, because, I see the other side of it, and I know what it could be. I've had this conversation with people before, in terms of, a lot of people don't take their husband's name nowadays. And, I am a feminist and everything like that. So people are quite surprised when I took my husband's name when we got married. And I was like, I took it because I wanted to live in a family where everyone had one name and it was like mum, dad, and the two kids. And I just wanted that really wholesome family picture that you see. So
Yeah.
I think sometimes when people look at others and judge, you don't know what they've been through and what they're you don't know their story. So I think
Yeah.
the best thing is to try not to judge.
So hard not to judge though, isn't it?
But
Because
yeah,
we're
we
so
all do.
wired to do it. Competing with the Joneses, we're literally raised in a Western upbringing to look at the person next to us and try and do better than them,
Mm,
essentially, and look at our grades and try and do better. But it's so hard to let go of that judgment. But it's such a crucial element of being human,
yeah.
being in our humanity, and especially when it comes to raising kids.
Mm,
I mean, do you want a kid who just competes, or do you want a kid who just sees creative insights and collaboration opportunities and just
mhm.
wants to be their best because they're a product of their environment?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
I see probably our generation and before is a lot of survival kind of mindset. There's not this like thriving. It's not about competition. It's more about doing your best and just collaborating, because there was this massive push for participation, which kind of went the direct opposite of like being first, second, and third, right? It's like, let's give everyone a participation medal, which I'm not for either. Like, if
No.
someone did their best, I don't want to play not to lose. I want to play to win. And even if I win or lose, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I think it's important with that because I would say I'm a competitive person, but not in the sense of I'm competing against other people. I'm competing against myself. And what that means is I am always looking to do better and achieve better, but within myself, not against other people. And I would always teach my kids to, whatever it is that they're pursuing and they want to do, okay, well, how can you improve? How can you do better? Not to compete with other people, but to get that sense of satisfaction. And that's why I don't like this, everyone gets a certificate for participating, because I don't think you're teaching your kids what happens in the real life. That's not real life. Um, and I don't think that that's teaching us enough, because then you go into the adult world, the real world, and it's a shock to the system,
Yeah,
and that is setting them up for failure. So for that reason, I just don't agree with the
definitely.
participation awards.
See, it almost is like the way of parenting was to make them as concrete as they possibly could be. But the thing with concrete is when it's super, super hard and it sticks that way, if it falls, depending on how far it falls, it will break and shatter, right? Or if you get the wrong kind of chemicals on that place or that concrete, it will just start melting. Versus, the probably more recent, the last 20, maybe 30 years, which I think it's sort of dissipating a little bit now. It's sort of finding that balance again, is going from being very concrete and hard to being so soft and, making sure everyone's wrapped up in cotton wool
Mm,
so that they
mm,
don't get offended, so they don't get hurt, and have this almost free expression without any boundaries. It's like I hear Sadhguru talk about this. He's like, if you could wear your organs, you would, because you'd make it a fashion symbol, right? It's so ridiculous. Like, if you couldn't feel pain is there. It's
mm.
meant to be there. It's to keep you grounded and within your physical boundary of yourself.
Yes,
But it's
exactly.
like, what are we teaching our kids? I think that's such an important lesson. And what are we learning from them? I think that's even more important.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to give them the space to fail and to make mistakes. I think if I look back at my childhood, that's one of the things that I think was actually unintentionally done by my parents, but that I'm happy. I was given a lot of freedom. And what that allowed me to do was explore things, make my own mistakes, and learn from them. I was never pushed in terms of, you should go and do this at uni, you should do that. And I made my own decisions. And I think sometimes we can be too involved in our kids where we're trying to push them in a certain direction,
Mm.
which I don't believe in. And my kids are quite small now, but even like little things, like if they fall over, I don't run to them straight away. But, oh, are you okay? Are you okay? They fall over and then wait to see how they react. And then, if they cry, obviously I go to comfort them. But 9 times out of 10, they get up and start running again. So
Yeah.
it's giving them that space to let them figure out, oh, wait, am I hurt? Instead of imposing on them, oh, you fell over, you must be hurt. So I think freedom's really important for children, even at a young age.
Yeah. Giving that little bit of space to create a response rather than just a reaction,
Yes.
because it actually leans into the next question. Yeah, it's so important not to just be a reactive, unconscious parent. You have a choice. You made a choice, whether it was unconscious or conscious, to become a parent.
Mm-hmm.
And you now have the most responsible little thing to look after. Right? You are fully in charge of taking care of this life, whether you realize it or not. Because it's not like we're in a survival crisis as a human species, right? There is choice around it. So I'd love to ask, Aleyx, what's a fear you had about parenting that turned out to be unfolded?
Fear I had that turned out to be unfolded. Good question. I guess the biggest fear, so I'm hesitant because I think we've talked about this before. When we first had our daughter, we
Yeah.
really didn't focus too much on what happens after the kid. We were so focused on the labor, and then it was a bit of a shock to the system actually bringing our daughter home, because like, oh, now what? But I think the biggest fear for me, in a way, and probably my husband too, was that our freedom would be taken away, that we wouldn't have the freedom we have anymore, and our life would change, which it did.
Yeah.
We couldn't, we were the first ones out of our friendship group over here anyway to have kids. And we couldn't go out every weekend with our friends anymore. We couldn't just go out for dinner whenever we fancied. And that took a big bit of adjustment. We really had to grieve our former life and accept that our life has changed. I remember one of my friends from back home saying, oh, they can just fit in with your life. And I'm like, what? That didn't really work for us, because we can't still go and party at the weekends with a baby. We don't have grandparents over here to babysit. So I think that was true. And we had to take the time and accept and then adjust to our new life. And now I love it. I was speaking to one of my friends who's got a kid at the same age as my daughter. And I said to her, I love this simple, to me, it's a simple way of life. I love being at home with my kids, with doing, family stuff. And I never thought, before I had kids, I thought, oh, that sounds like such a boring life. I'd hate to live in suburbia. And I just thought, oh, that's so boring. And now I'm in it. I love it. I've never been as content and happy. So it was a fear. We got through it, and now I'm very happy with my way of life. It's content and simple, and I like it.
What a wonderful gift that is, because it sounds like the expectation of what it was totally different, but it actually turned out to be something even better.
Exactly.
And I'm sure there's lots of people out there who probably have similar expectations, because it's not separate, right? It's not that you as a mum is separate to your family. Like, you're an integrated person in that whole story. right? You're not just the character, you're the entire thing. Like if you weren't there, the family wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
So it's like different elements of this ecosystem, I guess I would call it, that you're not just part of. It's like a series of books rather than just one book.
Yeah.
So I'd love to ask another question. And this one I like to ask because it just frames the future a little bit, in that turning that knowledge, I suppose, into wisdom and passing it on. So if you could go back, this one's future paced, so we won't go back, we'll go forward. So today is going to be your last day. And I'm just going to ask you to, will you have time to write down 3 pieces of advice that you could say or give to your children? What would they be?
It's a good question. The first one would definitely be yourself, because for so long in my own life, I portrayed a particular perspective of myself because I thought that's what I needed to do to fit in, to be accepted in particular circles, to be taken seriously at work. And what I've grown to realize is actually once you are yourself, you attract the right people, and you are, you get where you want to go because you're authentic, you're being yourself. So I would tell them to just be themselves and be them, and not shy away from their little quirks and the things that make them them, because we often, people can pick on that, especially kids. Kids are mean.
They are.
I think I said to you before, growing up, I've got quite big lips, and when I was a kid, I would be made fun of for that. But now as an adult, I know people pay money to have big lips, so it's just be comfortable with who you are and your own little quirks, because that's what makes you you. That would be one.
Well said. Yeah.
Thank you. What would another one be? To listen to yourself and listen to what you want. Now, these are all just things that I really had to learn over time and that really served me, because too often we look for external validation on what should I do next? Should I do this? Should I do that? But we all innately know what we need to do. We're just not good at listening to it. So I would tell them to really just be still, listen to what it is that you want, and you will have the answer if you listen close enough.
Okay.
And then the last one, just have fun. I think we can take life too seriously. I know I can.
Me
But
too.
but just have fun. Life's finite, and it's great to achieve our dreams and be successful. But it's also important to just have a bit of fun and not take the whole thing too seriously, especially for kids.
Yeah, it's so wise, and yeah, they're life lessons that I would live by for myself and pass on to my kids too. So thank you for sharing that.
You have to write them down.
Yeah, well, you're going to have this podcast for forever, of course, as long as the internet lives, I suppose. Who knows? Maybe it does have an expiry date. I'm not sure, but anyway, it's it says a lot about the person that you are, and being raw and being yourself is really the key to living a life that is yours. Otherwise, I've been caught in that trap, and certainly something I don't want to pass on to my daughter, of living someone else's life because you think you have to. Because that's really not a good way to live.
No.
And that's not where happiness comes from. Happiness is generated from within, and you can really only do that when you like what you see in the mirror.
But it takes time. So if I had to give a fourth one as well, is be kind to yourself, because it takes time to learn all that, and you've got to go through, you've got to make the mistakes, you've got to maybe do things you didn't want to do to learn that that's not what you wanted to do. Nobody gets it right first time.
Spot on. Yeah. It's probably my fourth one too. I love that. Well, Aleyx, thank you so much for sharing those wisdoms and those pearls, I suppose. I'd love to know, because we're drawing to the end of the podcast, how is Or what is the best way to connect with you if someone really loves what you've said here and wants to connect on socials or find out how to contact you? What's the best way to do that?
My main channel is LinkedIn, so you can find me, just search Aleyx Ward on LinkedIn. There's not many with my unusual spelling, so you'll be able to find me. I am on Instagram as well, Aleyx F Ward, but LinkedIn's the main one, and you can visit my website, corestory.com.au, if you're interested in learning how to unleash your own story.
Beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. I'll make sure I put them in the show notes.
Thanks.
And then I just want to ask one last question, and then that'll be the end of the episode. So if you could magically skip one phase of parenting, which would it be and why?
Easy, the newborn phase. That first 3 months. Why? Because my husband and I are routine people, and we did get our kids in a routine from a very young age. And once they were in the routine, everything became easier because we just knew, okay, this is when they nap, this is when they're going to eat, and they were content as well because they were getting enough sleep and enough food. But you can't do that straight away when they're newborn, and it's just nobody knows what's going on. They're going to sleep, they're going to eat whenever they want, and it's, for me, that lack of control just had me on edge. So if I could just skip that and get to 3 months in a routine, a happy days.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love that. I mean, so many people would probably resonate on the same thing because it's so unstructured and possibly so chaotic. So thank you for sharing that, and thank you for answering that so openly and honestly. Amazing. Well, Aleyx, that draws us to the end of the episode today. So thank you so much for playing here with me today and just sharing your story. And yeah, can't wait to see what the reactions in the comments are and find out how it resonates with people.
Thanks for having me, Shaun. It was a great conversation.
Thanks, Aleyx. And yeah, if you want Aleyx on the show again, please do comment and make sure we will make sure that we get her back on. So thanks, everyone. Take care. Have a wonderful week, wonderful day, and see you next time. Bye for now. Thanks for tuning in to Rawsome Parents, where we keep it raw, real, and awesome. If you loved this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Your support helps us reach more parents just like you. And hey, remember, parenting is a wild ride, but you're never in it alone. If you need more support or just want to connect, find me on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram at the Shaun Tucker. Until next time, stay raw, stay awesome, and keep leading with love. See you soon.